and welcome to this special bonus Christmas episode of Games Every Designer Should Play, a podcast that explores what aspiring and seasoned designers can learn from some of the greatest games of all time. I'm Stuart Lilford, the ghost of Christmas game design, and I'm joined by a couple of old Scrooges.
Yes, indeed. I'm Adrian Mills. There's my wallet.
And I'm Tiny David.
Tiny David, nice.
selling his tiny pies, tiny Christmas puds,
tiny mince pie,
Tiny mince pie.
tiny mince pies. Yeah.
In each episode, we'll be.
Yeah, one. It was right there.
It was right there. Mince pies was right there,
It was
Adrian.
right there.
And you went for Christmas puds.
I was right.
You're absolute amateur. Make us look like a bunch of fools. In each episode, we'll be discussing one essential game and what we can learn from it. Usually, at the end of the episode, one of us will reveal to the others the game we must play for the next episode. But as this is a bonus episode, we've collectively selected this one.
Mm-hmm.
And for this bonus episode, the game we'll be discussing is Tetris. Fair warning, this podcast will likely contain spoilers for the game Tetris, and you'll get more out of it if you've played. The deep lore of Tetris.
Absolutely. Who are those mice?
Who are those
the
mice? What's the backstory of the...
Why is the space shuttle taking off? We will reveal these things. Or maybe not. Who knows?
I mean, everyone will know what if you're listening to this, you'll have played or at least have seen gameplay
I would
of
hope so.
The game Tetris. So before we get into it properly, Adrian's got a few notes on the game itself.
Well, I'll say notes. I just took it from Wikipedia, so Tetris is a puzzle video game created. I've rewritten this. It's a puzzle video game recreated in 1985 by Alexei Pajitnov, a Soviet software engineer. Pajitnov developed several puzzle games on his institute's computer and Electronica 60. And in 1984, while trying to recreate a favourite puzzle game from his childhood featuring pentominoes, he imagined a game consisting of a descent of random pieces that the player would turn to fill rows. Pajitnov felt that the game would be needlessly complicated with 12 different shape variations, so he scaled the concept down to tetrominoes, of which there are 7 variants. It's often named one of the greatest video games of all time, and by December 2011, it sold 202 million copies. That's a lot. Approximately 70 million physical units and 132 million paid mobile game downloads, making it one of the best-selling video game franchises. It's been released on more than 65 platforms. That's probably gone up. I mean, it's on everything. Mm-hmm. It's probably on your toaster. The Game Boy version is one of the best-selling games of all time, with more than 35 million copies sold, which is not bad for a Game Boy game. Imagery from the game has influenced architecture, music, and cosplay. Tetris has also been the subject of various...
Hang on, sorry, cosplay?
Yeah, people dress up as bricks.
Yeah. I guess if you're new to cosplay... And you're like, you need something introductory, just like this cardboard box.
I'm an L shape. Tetris has also been the subject of various studies that have analysed its theoretical complexity and have shown its effect on the human brain following a session, in particular the Tetris effect, something I can speak to personally. Since 2011, there have been a further 11 official variations of the game, according to the website, released including the Tetris effect that was produced by Tetsuya Mitsuguchi. He directed games like Space Channel 5, Sega Rally 2, Rez, Meteos, Lumines, and things like that. Among a load of others, and there was also Tetris 99, published by Nintendo, which made the game into a battle royale. There's no stopping Tetris. Tetris is one of the purest games ever made, really, and it's why it endures to this day and will continue to endure. But what can we, as designers, learn from it?
Oh. Nice.
There you go. That's the intro. So Tetris, for those who don't know, Tetris, you play it across a grid of sort of 10 squares across by, 20 high or 25 high, I think it is. Shapes come down, and you basically just have to make a row of them at the bottom. When you do, that row disappears and you continue until you can no longer fit any more shapes because you built it to the top, and then it's game over. That's it. And it shouldn't work. I mean, it's because it's so simple. But it clearly taps into something in the brain. There's something in the brain, and a good comment I heard about this is that it's on because it's mentioned in the Charlie Brooker documentary how video games changed the world.
Yeah.
And there's a good comment in there. It's like as soon as you start playing Tetris, you're immediately winning. Like you're putting stuff down. As soon as that first row goes, you're winning. And you're winning, and you're instantly doing it, and then you start failing.
It's organisation.
And then you start failing.
Yeah, so it's organisational, and it's another thing that human brains like to make order from chaos.
Yeah, I mean, like this when we go on like family holidays and stuff, like or we're a family of 5, we've got 2 dogs. And going away in the caravan or whatever, fitting stuff in the car boot, fitting everything in the car boot, right? Is sometimes you've got to really think about where you're putting stuff.
Yeah.
And we always say it feels like Tetris.
I was gonna say, yeah.
But when you do it and you fill it right, you feel like, oh, you didn't think I would get that bag in there, did you? Well, look at this, and I've just slotted everything in perfectly. You're right. There is a kind of almost like an instinctive satisfaction with fitting things perfectly and neatly into a space. It's like that spatial reasoning. Games built on spatial reasoning obviously tapped into this.
And it's so simple. Like I said, it was made on a computer I've never heard of, an Electronica 60, some Russian sort of computer, and it was basically made with spaces, brackets, commas.
I didn't know that before. I went and played the original, a recreation of the original,
and that's it. Because it doesn't need anything. We've spoken about games like BioShock and Batman, and games that have Cocoon that have these great visual elements. This doesn't need any of that.
No,
this is gaming at its purest form. It's simply dropping blocks down and turning them round. And that simple thing about how many, I really like the fact that Pajitnov realised that 12 shapes would be too much. Just 7. So you've got so we start off. You've got 4. Each Tetris block is made up of 4 squares.
Was it Tetra?
I can't name them.
Nemo Tetris.
So you've got the straight one. So you've got all your 4 in a row. You've got a cube.
There's Blinky. There's
the hook ones which go either way. There's the L-shaped ones. And that's kind of it.
Yeah.
So you don't need anything more, because anything more would confuse. You wouldn't be able to figure it.
Yeah.
So it's one of those moments, sort of thing, in video game design, and this is probably going to be the oldest game we probably will have on the. I'm going to guess.
Yeah.
1984 thought of 1985 release. This is 40 years old.
Yeah. We could do chess one episode. That'll take us maybe 1,000 years or so, a few thousand years.
Yeah. Go back to chess. Maybe Space Invaders might come up, I don't know, at some point, but I doubt it. So there's a certain purity to this which has just endured, and because everything you add to it, you can add bits around it.
Yeah.
But I've played loads of different versions of this, like Weltris, Wetrix, Tetrix, multi-Tetris. There's loads of different weird versions which they try and add things in.
Yeah.
There's a puzzle bobble Tetris. There's all kinds of stuff, but you can't. This was just so perfectly conceived that it's like a perfect game. It's one of the perfect games.
Yeah.
Because it just will. And you put it in front of someone. What do? Oh, it got rid of that. Right. Oh, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
There's nothing to critique on it, really.
It's two inputs as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, well, Cocoon was like, you move and press this button.
Yeah.
Well, with this game, it's the same. It's the same. It's like minimal. You don't need hardly any input, and you just get. There's no tutorial. Stuff starts falling down. You try stuff out, and you realise I can rotate with this. This one moves them about. They start filling in, and then immediately, it's almost like because of that instinctive. I want to fit things in, and then as soon as you do that, you realise and then you just continue to kind of just do that.
Yeah,
just
and then you get the. So we talked about Vampire Survivors with its dopamine hits and that last thing, and this is another one of those every time. And the big dopamine hit you get when you get the Tetris block down the side.
Yeah,
when you get 4 rows going, one, it's like gone, and you're like, well, the perfect block just drops into the L shape, and you just fit that in there. But the other things this does well, the best versions of Tetris allow you. It's got that almost aftertouch. When you get a block down to its bottom and you still just move it left or right, you slot it in, and it's those little touches. So you're dropping it down. If I lose this, I'm just going to leave it, slot it left, fill that gap in, and it's like it's just moving blocks, but this is a 40-year-old game that is still getting made. And has anybody played the Battle Royale one, Tetris 99?
I've seen it.
I haven't.
You basically have like your main Tetris screen in the middle, and then you have
everybody
loads
else
of lots of tiny ones, and I think, is it like every time someone completes a row or something, it gets sent off to other players.
How do you send a row off to another player?
It randomly assigns
I think it comes up from the bottom.
Yeah.
So it will spawn a new layer from the bottom.
Yeah,
and
so then you've got
to...
more. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. So you're fighting to get rid of your sort of thing, but pushing everyone else's, which throws them up. And I think it randomly assigns them until they start dropping out. And like any kind of battle royale, people drop out and stuff like that.
Said, can you make a battle royale game out of Tetris to somebody? You'd be like, what?
Yeah.
But they've managed it.
They managed it. I mean, Nintendo are doing all kinds of weird battle royales. They did an F-Zero.
Oh, the F-Zero one.
Yeah, F-Zero 99. This is just like, but that's the Nintendo thing, and there's loads of good stories around Tetris as well, because obviously it comes from a period of video games where the rules were being rewritten.
Yeah.
You know, the business was being sort of, there's the story about how Nintendo got hold of it and Mirrorsoft, and because the first version of Tetris I played was on the Commodore 64, so it was released in 1988. And it's a pretty good version. It does suffer, unfortunately, that it gets to a point where, because obviously it's an 8-bit machine, it can't quite handle it. It gets to a point where it gets too fast for you to actually be able to do anything. So you can only get to a certain point. I'm a Tetris savant almost, because I've played it so much.
Yeah.
But I were on that part. I was like, you can't move this fast enough. Because I played it again recently. But like, it's so simple a game that even in 64K, they managed to have space to have some really nice artwork down the sides and a 25-minute piece of music that was really good, because there's very little to it. You're just moving blocks down.
And the music is good for Tetris.
It wasn't that music though in the 64 version.
No, but
completely different place.
The music everyone knows, it's great.
Yeah,
it's such a good. There's
It was on top of the pops. It released as a single. It's on top of the pops.
Really?
It's a culture. This game was a cultural, touchstone. Everybody knows it. They made it into a film.
Yeah.
A film that I haven't seen.
No, I haven't either. No. But that's what I mean. This is a game which will just continue to keep going, because it's one of those, put in front of a youngster and it's like, oh, okay, yeah. But it's also dangerously addictive, which leads to that Tetris effect we talked about and you were sort of alluding to. But I can speak to I've period during the 90s where I had the Game Boy version of this. I was playing it so much that I was seeing blocks everywhere in my sleep, in my dreams, just moving stuff, walking around through streets. That could fit there, that could fit there. That last version, it just happened. I had to stop playing it because it became very, very stupidly addictive, like to a point where,
it's like recoding your brain at that point.
Yeah,
just to see patterns
and
Do you think, like you mentioned that we had this conversation earlier, and David, you mentioned The Witness.
Yeah.
Do you think that the end of The Witness is a hint to that, to the Tetris effect? Because obviously in the game The Witness, you're doing this pattern thing over and over again. Then by the end of it, there's like
spoilers.
Spoilers for The Witness. You have that cut scene where the guy's basically seeing those shapes around. That's basically what was happening to you actually in real life?
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's because I showed you earlier on, because you had the Switch version with the Game Boy version on the Switch.
Yeah.
And the Game Boy version was so good because it had the basic two modes, A and B. A mode was the normal mode, and B mode was like a puzzle mode where it would fill up part of the grid with random blocks.
Yeah.
But you had, I think you could go up to level 9, speed 5, or was it level 5?
Speed 6, maybe.
Yeah,
something like that.
There's 5 and 9 are the top ones. I think it goes from 0 to 5. So there's six speeds, I think, and 9 levels. And I think the level 9 is how high it fills the grid up with random blocks.
Yeah.
5 is the speed. I could quite easily do speed 5, level 9, without breaking a sweat, and I could do that because when you do it, you get the cutscenes of, like, I think it's the space shuttle taking off and little mice dancing. Weirdly, I don't know why.
Well, you needed something.
Yeah, but you on other ones, I think you get rockets taken off. There's different shape size rockets on different speeds.
Yeah.
So I just opened all them up and sort of think I couldn't. It was like I got to a point where I was like, "There's no challenge." It lost all meaning. I was Tetris. I just needed more blocks. I was empty of blocks. I needed more blocks to fill me up. It's dreadful. But that's the beauty of this game.
Yeah, I mean, I never really. I had one of the original, grey brick Game Boys, and I had Tetris for it, but it never sucked me in
to that degree.
Like that. I mean, I would have taken Pokemon over.
They were
Tetris.
The two games I had. Pokemon Red and Tetris.
Yeah.
Pokemon Red didn't get a look in.
Yeah. Well, for me, it was the other way around.
Yeah.
And I've I mean, I always think Tetris is like, for me, I don't know. Well, I think maybe my opinion of it is different because I'll do like 10 minutes of Tetris. I'm like, yeah, okay, I've had enough. I don't know if it's because like the core game is ultimately high score based, isn't it?
Yes.
And that's it comes from arcades where having your name on the high score thing had some prestige associated with it. Other people could see my initials on there and they know I'm the best at Tetris. Whereas if I'm just playing it on my own Game Boy, I'm like, yeah, it's got high scores, I can input my initials, but yeah, of course I'm going to have all the high scores because it's my copy of Tetris on my Game Boy.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
You need
So
someone
it
else.
almost felt pointless. The B game was better. And I think if I'd have come to it and it was like, here's this level, and then it kind of got progressively more difficult. But it's not like a story mode beat game. It's like, oh, you can just set it to whatever. You can set it to the last level from straight away.
Yeah.
Whereas if it was maybe more of a progression,
You
have to unlock them. I might have felt more okay. I will do that. But playing just like normal Tetris after 10 minutes, I'm like, yeah.
Whereas I'm like, I have to turn this off. I stop playing because if it's a good version of Tetris where I can just keep going, I generally tend to keep going, and I go, I have to stop. I have to cold turkey that. I can barely go back to it. But curious. I mean, what? So obviously it's an old game. It's 40-year-old. What do we take from it?
Well, this is the thing. I think
what if you had an element to take from the game
thing
itself?
For me, well, there's a couple of things. That the KISS rule, keep it simple.
Yeah.
That comes back to or pick the thing you want to focus on and do that thing well, and that's what this game does. It keeps it simple. It's a game about, like you say, started off with 12 shapes, reduced it to 7. So yeah, keep that idea of simplicity is key. Making things kind of easy readable for the player. This really exemplifies it. The other thing I think it obviously is a good example of is that kind of core game loop. We talked about this in the Vampire Survivors episode, but this kind of your core gameplay loop is a Tetris shape comes down, you want to choose where you put it there. That's the your core loop, and then your secondary loop is fill enough gaps to wipe out a row, and then your tertiary one is you do that enough times to achieve the high score.
I think like I don't know if pattern recognition is the right word, but like the human brain kind of likes to create patterns and sort of different things like that. So if you can find something that just scratches that itch,
taps it
in your brain, that is like, it's just a certain pattern or something where the brain is just like, if I put all these things together, it's just very satisfying.
I mean, because that load of games do that, and they do it in certain different ways. Because you could look at boss fights as pattern recognition. Yeah. So boss fights, if we come back to the Souls games a lot, but you play the Souls, you fight the bosses enough to recognize the patterns, to know when it's Artorias is about to do this spinny jump, so I know I need to dodge and then dodge and then dodge, or the Iron Golem's going to tread on me and try and kick me off, so I need to roll and get around the back. And you recognize those moments, and those moments then that leads to satisfaction within you because you're recognizing patterns and you're doing the counter move to that sort of thing. So in this, I'm not sure if it was in the original version. You said you played the original. I haven't played the original in years, sort of thing. But did it show you the next block coming?
I think it did.
So that's the thing. I think that's one of the other things to this. It's like giving the player enough information to plan the next step. So it's like, right, okay, so there's a cube coming next, right? So I need to leave a space where there's going to be 2, or there's going to be one of those wiggle, spiky ones off to the left. I need to leave some in space there. Yeah. So a game, I played versions this way, doesn't tell you that, and they're not as much fun.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. Because Puzzle Bobble does this as well, doesn't it? It shows you the next colour.
Shows you the next colour one you're coming to, right? So I know, okay, there's a blue one coming. I've got 2 blues over there, so I'm not going to block that off. I'm going to fire over here. So games where they actually inform you.
It just shows you on the side.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it does tell you, and like I said, I've played versions where it doesn't tell you that, and it's not as good because it feels you can't plan. So there's those 2 things that it's doing here. You're putting the piece that you have control of into the space, but you're also planning your next step. So this is loads of game. Your gaming is that, isn't it?
Yeah.
A lot of gaming is that, where you're going, right, I do this, then I can do that. And it may only be one step ahead, but it gives you a sense of control and feeling that it's not just completely random and you're just reacting all the time.
Yeah.
Because randomness, you play some games and it's just a random series of whatever, and you're like, I have no idea what's going on here.
Well, it comes back to pattern recognition.
Yeah.
That's ultimately games they're presenting us with a series of patterns that we need to kind of solve and absorb. If there isn't a pattern, then it's just noise, and we don't respond well to that.
Yeah, I mean, it's how we work as humans. We make patterns, we see patterns, like we have daily routines and like different things that you just do.
I talk about this in level design lectures about how we want to present the player with patterns, and if you want to surprise the player, you establish a pattern and then you break it. Which is so an example of that would be in The Last of Us Part 2, when you are using the crafting tables multiple times. You've established this pattern of when you get to a crafting table, you can craft stuff on your weapons, and then suddenly 2/3 through the game, you're in the middle of doing that, and then you get ambushed. You've established this pattern, then you surprise the player. Spoilers for The Last of Us Part 2. Also, spoilers for Batman Arkham Knight. In Batman Arkham Knight, you're using the grapple hook constantly to kind of whiz around all the rooftops, the city, the skyscrapers or whatever. And there's one section where you get up to the top of a building, and then suddenly Man-Bat appears and screams in your face. And obviously it's establishing this pattern that you then get used to, and then it throws that surprise at you, and being able to take advantage of these established patterns that we've got in order to surprise the player. Those moments really stick out. Those moments where the player feels like they've been surprised. Their expectations have been subverted. They feel surprised that like the Man-Bat bit and the being surrounded by enemies at the crafting table in Last of Us, and also in The Last of Us Part 2, another spoiler, when there's a sequence where you're just like walking normally through a space, and then you're pushing a giant crate, so you can push it up to a window so you can climb out of this section, which you've done multiple times. Again, establish the pattern, but at this point the floor goes underneath you, and you drop down into a bit with a bloater. So it's again a really memorable bit because it's establishing this pattern and then it's breaking it.
And games do that for sequels as well. There's a couple off the top of my head with these pattern recognitions. The first Halo game, where you fight the hunters. The hunters are these big. I don't know if you play, the hunters.
I've been playing it recently.
They're always in pairs, and if you've got the pistol, you can just go round the back and shoot them in the smashing Jaffa orangey bit, and they die immediately. And that's quite good. So when you learn that, and they actually show you that in the demo run at the beginning of the game. So if you leave the demo run, they show you doing that. They show you do that, so you can learn that. In the second game, you try to get round them, but they've programmed now to have this. They basically have this huge back swipe with a massive arm. So you were thinking, I'm just going to go around the back of you, and it's like bam, you're pretty much dead, because you're like, I wasn't expecting that, and now they made it trickier. Dark Souls to Dark Souls 2. Dark Souls teaches you everything. Get round the back and backstab everything. Start of Dark Souls 2, you go into the Forest of Fallen Giants. You find these turtle knights. You get round the back of them, and you're about to sort of think, I'll backstab you, and they fall on you. They fall backwards and crush you.
Do a lot of damage.
Do loads of damage, and you're like, and you can't backstab them. So they subvert that pattern. They break what you expect. They add these unexpected elements, and I think that's this doesn't do that.
No, Tetris does not break the pattern. It establishes the pattern. I think that's why I not get bored of it, but I just I feel like, I've got everything I'm going to get from this.
Whereas something like you can take that, and something like Tetris 99 does break that pattern.
Of course,
because you're getting things added in from the bottom. Or there are multiplayer Tetrises. I've seen multiplayer Tetrises where you're going against each other and adding rows to each. It's not a new concept, but the core of this comes to being able to, you're one step ahead of the game, and that gives you a sense of power, a sense of feeling of control, like I said, and that is it's not just a random block coming next. It's like, I know it's there, and that's one of the great little design choices that Pajitnov made with this game. If he hadn't have done that, maybe someone down the line would have done it, but because it's there in the original, I think that's a really good, giving the player foreknowledge of what's coming up.
And I think weirdly, when you were talking about that, it made me think about Batman Arkham Asylum. Probably because we've literally just recorded that episode. But the Predator sections where you're planning your current move, but you're also watching where all the guards are going, so you're thinking about what to do next, especially in the challenge map rooms when you're like, okay, I'm going to get this, I'm going to take this guy out, but that's going to attract that guy over there, so then I can get inside this vent and I can come out behind him and take him out as well. So it's like that kind of planning stage is part of the experience. It's part of the gameplay. It's showing the player, what they've got coming, and so that they can kind of plan, and then they can try and execute the plan, whether it works or not.
And the grander plan within Tetris is to get the Tetris.
Yes.
I don't even know if it was actually called that. First thing it became that. To get
in the Game Boy version, it's called the Tetris.
Yeah. Maybe they just we're going to call it that.
Yeah.
Because that requires a lot of planning, like to fill 4 rows but leave the one on the right or the left or somewhere in the middle just completely clear, so you can get the long 4 just to drop in. But it's immensely satisfying, and at the time you end up, it's like, I'm just going to have to put the 3 hook. I'm going to put a hook in there. But that if you put the hook in there, you're going to have
covered it up.
You've covered it up, so now you're going to have to work to clear it again. And there's that loop there of like, I've not screwed myself over, but I've created an extra challenge here of my own design, because I wasn't getting the bit I wanted, which there's frustration, but there's satisfaction in then uncovering it back up again and then get this.
But it's that player choice. It's presenting you with all these choices. It's the player's agency about, okay, I could put this block here and block it up. I haven't got. I need another a long 4 one, and they're not. But I could just put it in to fill it for now, so I can get rid of the. Yes, it's making that choice. It's presenting the player with this risk reward, kind of choice, and
And the one with the 3 and the 1 sort of at the middle. So you've got the line of 3, and then there's 1 in the middle. There's something immensely satisfying about dropping that into a gap, which it fits perfectly.
It is.
Get rid of 2 lines. It's like, even 2, it's like, this is just good, and then you move on, and all right, so that's coming in. So for me, this game is a sense of it's so simple, but there's the level of control, but not too much. You only get shown 1. You can't plan too far ahead. So there is unknowns. So there's chance. There is randomness. But as you rightly say, player agency, player choice. Where you put it is up to you. But there's also don't forget then there's the rising challenge, because the blocks appear faster. So as the blocks appear faster, you've got to think quicker. You've got to plan faster, and that soon leads to chaos on the board when where am I putting this? I don't know where. I'll just put it there. I won't put this. I don't know where to put it there. Oh, damn it! You're halfway at the board suddenly, and you're like,
But then sometimes you can then sort that back out again, and you're like, yes, I'm back near the bottom, and then but other times you just.
That's like you going inside and someone else putting stuff in the boot in the wrong way, and you come back out and like, what have you done? That not go in there. I've got to put that there.
To leave enough space for the child.
The boo.
Joking. But I think one of the does procedural gameplay equal replayability? So in this case, obviously, the procedural element is which blocks you get. It's not prescribed. It's randomised. Which blocks you get, which makes it feel different each time.
Yes.
I guess it depends on what's procedural and how procedural it is.
What's randomised? Like
procedural gameplay aspects of gameplay.
I say I've played a lot of bad sort of vertical and horizontal shooters, 2D shooters from the 80s and things like that. And the best ones give you waves. And like your classic ones, so you can plan and you can work out sort of thing. But there'll be elements where they sort of bullets where fire and stuff, which is slightly different. So you can never plan. The bad ones is just random rubbish just coming from the right, and you can't plan, and you're like, this
noise. It's noise.
So it depends on the level of it. If there's a little bit of randomness, that's all right within it. Okay, but too much and it becomes. Like, the best roguelikes, because essentially we're talking about roguelikes and roguelites. So the best roguelikes will randomise enough to make it interesting each run. Things like Dead Cells and stuff like that. But you'll know you've got a sort of shape. The Isaac, I think, is another one by Isaac.
Yeah, you've got so many. You've got so many rooms, and then it's a boss, and then Vampire Survivors it comes back to what you're saying, like the waves thing. The best one, you know what waves are coming, you can plan for them, but the procedural element is which weapons you get to upgrade.
Yeah. So there's balance in plan. So a good game is designed to a point, but then adds elements of chance. I mean, you're playing Balatro, aren't you, at the moment?
Yeah, I've been playing a bit of Balatro.
I think that does, and Marvel Snap, these games.
Yeah.
You know, there's elements of design in there because you're kind of building a deck, and so you're designing stuff. But then there's the elements of chance because you don't know what the other player's going to play, you don't know what the cards and the locations. So they can randomize out, and sometimes that can be very annoying, especially if you get a run where it's like completely against you. Or it can be very satisfying when you get a run where everything seems to go for you. And it's like, you know.
It's trying to like avoid those moments where the player has no control whatsoever over a situation, where like if you're in a roguelike or something and there was absolutely no chance that you could have dodged something or whatever, like you don't have the ability to, if you had hindsight, you still wouldn't be able to dodge it or whatever. Like those are the little moments where you get frustrated because you're like, I couldn't do anything there. And then,
it's like good boss fights. This is one thing we had against the Batman game, you know, Batman Arkham Asylum, and the bosses have they have a series of moves, but you don't know which move's coming out.
Yeah.
But they have tells where you can kind of spot them. The Batman games, the thing they'll pick up a human, lob it at you, then they'll go. And, just flat the chest and they can run at you, and it's like, okay, this is your two things, and that's what made it so boring. There wasn't any challenge.
No surprise.
No surprise. No, I don't know what it's doing. It's across the other side of the room. It's quite easy. I would take that proceduralness is like, well, which element is it going to do next? And that can get too much. I think we talk about the Souls games a lot because obviously me and David are big fans of them. But I think in the recent Souls games, they've erred too far on this boss has 70 moves.
Right.
Yeah. And it's like, which one is it? Well, you can tell which one it is, sort of thing, because he's swinging down at 30 degrees for this move, but in the other move it's 25 degrees, and so you need to roll right on this one and left. It's like, I can't read that. It's too much.
This comes back to that pattern recognition thing again, and then too much stuff, it becomes noise to us. We can't.
There is a pattern.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I think that's tied in with that. I don't think we've talked about Csikszentmihalyi's fleur theory on here before.
I think we might have mentioned it.
But that idea of if it's too. You've got two axes. It's challenge and
ability.
Player ability and challenge. If your ability is too low where the challenge is high, then you feel frustrated, anxiety, you're not getting on with it. But conversely, if your ability is great but the challenge isn't high enough, then you get bored. So when you're talking about that boss in Dark Souls with 70 different attacks, you're feeling frustration because you feel like you're feeling like it's unfair. How am I supposed to recognize 70 different move types and all these different tells? I get that. But then
some of the later ones,
if
you look on the wiki, I think it's one with like 25, 26 moves.
Something stupid.
Whereas with Batman, it was like, right, I'm bored of this enemy type because it's my abilities enough, and it's not throwing enough variety.
Why you need playtesting, because like there are different type of players. Like there's games we've played where we haven't agreed on certain things. Like you can't just assume that a player is going to recognize this pattern that you've put into the game. You can't just like, all right, I put it in here, so they just need to follow this now.
So Tetris, Adrian obviously really loved Tetris for the Game Boy. I played 10 minutes of it. I was like, right, I've got enough out of it. So play testing would have gone, okay, well, for those players who feel like that's it, how can we get them? And
they released a battle royale.
Or the Tetris story mode.
Tetris Effect in VR.
VR Tetris.
VR came out. I think Tetris Effect first came out for PSVR. So you're playing it in front of you, sort of thing. But there's all, because the guy who did Rez,
Okay.
So Tetsuya Mitsuguchi is based on a 5 res, so he's very much into a synesthesia thing. So you're playing this Tetris, but there's all, you're playing it in VR with like all space and underwater and all this kind of stuff, and it's all kind of like it's kind of full sensory experience of Tetris, and it's incredible. You can play it normally, you can get it on normal screens, but in VR, it is a really quite impressive experience. So. But yeah, but when it comes down to that, Tetris is just an incredibly addictive game. That's what you add to it, you can add around the edges, but don't mess around with it too much. Because it just there's something in it. I don't know. Pajitnov hit on something. One of those perfect core things. It's like a Rubik's cube. And coming back to pattern recognition, so our phone numbers are only go up to 11 digits, isn't it? We can't handle anymore.
Yeah, probably.
It is. Yeah. It's the thing that the human brain can only, I think it's 11 digits before we go.
We can't remember that.
We can't remember. Yeah. It's like, I don't know how many, I can say pi to a few digits, but beyond that, you're like, who cares? But yeah, I think phone numbers, 11 numbers, I read somewhere that 11 numbers is the sweet spot.
Yeah.
To have enough randomness to give enough telephone numbers out, but not too many, because the brain, once you get to 12, you're like, I can't.
Yeah. Forget that last one.
Yeah. So phone numbers are another good example of random, what we can sort of hold.
Interesting.
But yeah, and the Tetris effect of this game, other games do it, like you said. Witness does it. There are games that I think, another one that I heard a lot of people talk about is Tony Hawk's.
Okay, yeah.
Tony Hawk's, the first one, I think it was Tony Hawk's 2, Pro Skater 2, where people played it. It was very addictive, sort of, because it was a 2-minute run. So you did 2 minutes and you did what you could. And I would speak to, I never got massively into the Tony Hawk's games because I found them, they were, I couldn't. There was something about the Tony Hawk's games that when you went up a thing, my entire body tensed. And I found after about 5 minutes of playing, I was actually in pain. So because as soon when you grind up a thing and then you go for a big jump and you're like that, I'd be like holding the buttons, going,
yeah, you went through about 7 controllers because you kept crushing
I was like,
them.
I'm just not enjoying this. This is it's too much.
It makes me think of kids playing racing games where they start leaning. They start leaning left and right.
I was 29, but it was having that effect on me. So I was like, I'm not enjoying this anymore. It's actually hurting. The bits of my body that were clenching, I was like, oh, that's really hurting. But people who did play it didn't have that effect. They would say when they went out into the real world, they would be looking. Just at places going, right, I can grind on that rail, jump off that tail thing, that ollie across to there and around that curb, because they were seeing the game in the world.
Well, it comes back to that. This is what I'm doing now, but then I can do this. It's that.
But
giving the player the ability to plan their
moves. But this is not just in game. This is like affecting the brain to a point where they were seeing it actually in the real world.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they were walking along, and my mate was really into it at the time, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm seeing grind rails, and I'm seeing this area as a level that I can get a really good score on." And I said, you need to stop playing.
Yeah, I can't say I've ever played a game to that extent.
But Tony Hawk's is another one that had that effect on people. There's others as well, because there's something within those moments of like just you in Tony Hawk's you don't see the grind rail stuff. You just see the route. You just see the plan of the in 2 minutes, and that's what people were seeing, and they were like looking around, going, I can do that, and wherever. Yeah, there was a time when I was like playing Gran Turismo a lot when it first came out on the PlayStation, or maybe Gran Turismo 2, and then when I was driving along the motorway, I was like really impressed that cars had reflections in the real world. Like I could see my own car in that.
That's terrible.
Because my brain was going in there's good bonnet reflections. So I was starting to notice bonnet reflections and stuff because I could see it in game, and I was like, things I'd not noticed.
Yeah,
which suddenly transferring over. My brain was going, I can see.
Hopefully, there's games where that doesn't happen with people. Like, I've been playing a lot of Grand Theft Auto, and I'm just eyeing up all these pedestrians on the sidewalk that I could just.
That's a juicy looking purse.
Yeah. Well.
It's that whole thing of like when when you get into like game design or I don't know, film or whatever, you start looking at games and you start thinking about all the little things behind the scene, and like with films and stuff, you start spotting all the stuff that you're learning about, all the theory and all that stuff. Like you start to see it a lot more. Similar to that.
I always start level design module off with I'm going to ruin video games for you. Because I'm going to tell you all these things and you're going to then notice them when you're playing.
Yes.
Yeah.
very much so. But yeah, I think Tetris is one of those earliest examples of those kind of things where it bordered off into the real world. And like you said at the very beginning, there's something very very satisfying about filling a space perfectly. And another example of this, which just, I don't know whether we want to round off sort of thing, is, have you played Resident Evil 4?
No. I've never played a Resident Evil game.
Okay, right. Have you played Resident Evil 4?
Remaster.
That's fine.
Yeah.
How satisfying is it to arrange all your stuff in your suitcase?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You spend too much time.
Yeah, absolutely. People buy the next suitcase, and I can put a herb there, and I can fit a grenade there, and I can put that there. Bullets go there, gun goes there.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah, well, there's a board game called Patchwork, which is a 2-player board game, which is essentially a load of Tetris pieces that you fit onto a grid, and that's satisfying if you get it all filled in really nice and neatly.
I mean, it goes back to things like dominoes.
Yeah.
Playing dominoes is essentially putting the right thing down at the right time to create that continuous thing. We just like I said, I think this game just
Jigsaw.
We like things that fit inside other things neatly.
Patterns, patterns of stuff that fit inside nicely. Jigsaw is a really good example. Yeah. Jigsaws, when you sat there with a 1,000-piece jigsaw, and you're like, I can't get the edges.
Yeah.
But
because in the end, you have the picture on the box. It's there, isn't it? You know what it looks like.
It's showing you the end cutscene.
Yeah, exactly.
Before you've completed it.
So
I've wasted my life. Could have just looked
at the box. Why did I sprint on?
Exactly.
Coming back to it, fitting something together, making it right, bringing order from chaos. I think is a very primal sort of something within us. We just like things to be tidy.
Yeah. I think my takeaway is just the pattern recognition. Like, get people to play test stuff, see what makes their brains tick, and like what they sort of grab onto. And use it.
I imagine we all have ways that we put stuff in our bag.
Yeah.
Well, otherwise it won't fit.
Well, you could
fit right.
It would fit. It just wouldn't fit right.
It wouldn't fit right.
There was because in my bag I have a part. There's a part within the bag sort of thing, which is an extra pouch, and I can fit the laptop in there. So I have the laptop in there because that's the bit that goes against my leg. So it's flat. Thing, right? So that's good. So I can have all the other bits like the power pack and the mouse and the game controller outside of that. So that's not it's not jagged against my leg. The other week, my partner was checking my bag, and she had the laptop, and she went, I said, can you just put the stuff in my bag? She put the laptop out and all the stuff in the pouch. I got out and I put the bag on, and I was like, this is wrong. It's all wrong. It's not fit right. But I'm not having a go. She filled my bag. It's not having a go, but it's just like in my brain it was like, it's not the right way round.
And you've got to be careful not to kind of make a row of everything in your bag, because otherwise it deletes itself, and then you lose your keys.
Yeah, absolutely. Amount of power packs I've gone through on the laptop. IT are well annoyed with me.
Yeah, you're stocking your fridge, and you put it too well together, and it's just gone.
Oh no, I slotted the milk in there perfectly, and now I've lost tonight's dinner.
Absolutely. I'm milk shy.
Oh God.
Oh, there we go. I think that's Tetris.
Yeah,
that was. Well, it was a bit more as well.
A bit more.
A few other games.
We meandered.
Yeah, well, I think
it's a good Christmas special.
Yeah, I think so. But it's one of those games that informs a lot of design from into other stuff. You can see elements of Tetris and those things that make up in so much of video games.
So, because this is a Christmas episode, I've got a little present for you.
Oh God!
In this bag right here.
I'm worried.
Here we go.
Oh, thank you.
It's an actual Christmas present.
This is a
wrap for both of you.
A wrapped present right now.
Yeah. You could
ASMR.
You want us to open it now?
Yeah. Open it right now. Yeah. David is opening his present. Inside is a white cardboard box. It's like box shaped. Adrian is opening it as well. It's the same.
It's a box shaped box.
It's a box shape.
It's white. Yeah. Are we ready? If I can find.
It's a Games Every Designer Should Play mug. It is!
It is! It's a Games Every Designer Should Play mug.
So is this subtle advertising that you too could get yourself?
You too can get yourself a mug with the logo on of our podcast. No, we haven't set up. Although, one day maybe we'll have a merch. merch section of somewhere online with our logo on.
Thank you very much.
For now,
Yeah, thank you very much.
there you go. You've both got a mug
Cheers.
with the logo on.
If you don't believe us, there's the mug slinking.
Yeah, that
Oh,
was-
the handle fell off. What cheap?
Oh no! Yeah, got the guy who was selling them out of his car boot gave me a right good bargain.
He really
Yeah.
did.
Made of paper mache, so just go careful. So that brings us to the end of this episode. If you're passionate about game design and enjoyed the podcast, don't forget to subscribe, like it, leave us a nice review. A really good Christmas present for us would be to give us a nice review on the podcast platform of your choice.
It would be.
And also to, I don't know, repost some of our social media stuff, convince a friend to listen to an episode. We are at Should Play Pod on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads and YouTube. Join the conversation and suggest games you'd like to feature in future episode. All that's left is for us to say thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Happy Christmas!
Hang on. When we are playing, when we
when we are playing
Titanfall
Titanfall 2.
2, yeah. So there you go. Now it's left for us.
Okay. Now all that's left for us to say is Happy Christmas! Bye!
Say Merry Christmas.